Hello and welcome to the BVB update for July 10th. I'm Stefan Butzko, and in this format I cover all Borussia Dortmund news of the day and other shenanigans, and obviously where else to start than with the main man himself. Sorry, I'm catering to the US audience, but it's Reyna and he is finally back as promised, and he obviously returned from his rehab from the United States, but as you can see in this photo and these very white tennis socks right here, is that he is still very much assimilated to the German culture. And in the Ruhrnachrichten, there's a little piece about his return as well, which of course is very good news. And the Ruhrnachrichten write that the plan is to slowly and carefully reintegrate Reyna into team training. That's pretty much all they write, but in the final paragraph they also have a tiny bit about the possibility of the other new signings, meaning Aller, Adeyemi, Schlotterbeck, Süle, Özcan, etc., that they could all feature in Thursday's test against SC Verl, which for me, I guess, is really good news because I'm eager to see them all. The kickoff is at 6 p.m. local time on Thursday, and you can watch that on the club's YouTube channels. But before I talk about any more about the next friendly, let's recap a little bit more about yesterday's against Dynamo Dresden, because there was another post-game interview with Marius Wolf, and he was asked about the coaching change because, of course, under Marco Rose, he actually found his feet in Dortmund after his loan spells in Cologne. And he said about Edin Terzic, quote, "Obviously, he's a different guy than Marco Rose, but no two coaches are the same. Terzic is an eager guy. I already worked with him when he was Lucien Favre's assistant. Terzic wants to be successful and develop our style of football. He wants to work hard. You could already tell in the first 2 weeks, even when a lot of guys were still missing." And talking about the missing guys, Marius Wolf is also talking about the players returning, and in specific about Sebastian Aller. And he said there, "I've already had an awesome time with Sebastian Aller in Frankfurt. We were in touch during the summer vacation." Obviously, he is also looking forward to all other players, but more importantly, it's good for him to know Sebastian Aller. So Sebastian Aller maybe has an easier time integrating with the help of Marius Wolf. And there's another important quote I want to read to you where he was talking about his own situation. And he said, quote, "My situation did not change. I want to help the team. Whether I play 1 minute or 90 minutes, I don't care. I want to win." And I think this is a great quote that I want to hone in on a little bit, because I think Marius Wolf can grow into a very important role player at Borussia Dortmund, because we all know skill-wise maybe, and as an attacking talent, he is not in the highest echelon of Dortmund players, clearly, but I think he is a fighter. He is very dynamic. He is fast. He has a knack for defense, and I also think that he's very solid overall, and maybe he can become a player like a late stage Jakub Blaszczykowski at Borussia Dortmund, where also other players around him weren't at the highest level, but the dynamic and the understanding with Lukas Piszczek back then was obviously still crucial. And more importantly, he did the dirty work, and he was just a workhorse for the team and also a point of identification. And I can see Marius Wolf becoming that. So if he manages to continue where he left off last season, I think we're on a very good path. And I think Dortmund did pay around 8 or 10 million for him when they sent him from Frankfurt, and no one was entirely sure what was going to happen with him, because clearly he was never going to be the best footballer. But after a couple of loan spells, I think with Cologne for 2 seasons or so, he has finally found his feet at Dortmund, and I hope he continues that. Obviously, the coaching change might be tricky for him, because Marco Rose and him, they got along very well. So we'll see how this continues, but I'm optimistic that it's going to work out. And let's move on to another story. And how else could it be than Matthias Sammer, because he right now is literally absolutely everywhere. You hardly ever hear from him for most of the time as a Borussia Dortmund external consultant, and now, boom, he is everywhere. And this time he had a very long interview in Kicker, and obviously I did not translate the entire interview because that would be a little bit too lengthy. But here are a couple excerpts where I thought were interesting. And he was asked about the decision to change managers at the end of last season, because that's obviously a question that journalists still share an interest in. And he said, quote, "Borussia Dortmund has discussed a strategy for itself, namely that we want to make our own identity more recognizable again. That includes the team's attitude and style of play. It's too simplistic to just look at the results. That's always an important component, but I'm interested in looking to the future. That's about identity and a way of playing, about focusing on performance culture and performance development. Aki Watzke, Sebastian Kiel, Michael Zorc and myself have come to the conclusion that we wanted a wholesale change. So it has also affected the coach, but it would be too easy to focus on the coach alone. That wouldn't be fair. And then he's explaining how Borussia Dortmund and Marco Rose parted ways in good spirits, if you will. But we have not heard from Marco Rose yet, so I'm still eager to hear his side of the story. I wonder if and when that will happen. But yeah, then of course Matthias Sammer moves on and explains once again why he thinks Edin Terzic is the guy to bring in. And he says, quote, Edin Terzic brings emotionality, knowledge, authenticity to the table. For Dortmund, it's about building a recognizable brand of football independent of the final score, although the final scoreline is obviously important too, he says. This must be the case in terms of attitude, winning mentality, consistency, and the hierarchy must continue to develop. And then he says, in Edin, we have a source of inspiration who we at the club consider to be very capable. And yeah, there were also a couple of good one-liners, like saying, quote, we must learn that good is not good enough as long as better is possible. And then he's talking about last season and how the team miserably failed in the do-or-die games and bemoaned that Borussia Dortmund once again have to teach opponents that Borussia Dortmund never gives up. And then he says something that I also think is quite important. Sammer says here, I want to see a sporting development, but I also want to see a change in group dynamic. That's my biggest wish. Yeah, and I honestly have to agree there with Matthias Sammer, because if you, for example, think back to the glory days under Jürgen Klopp, to take it to the most extreme level, it wasn't just that Borussia Dortmund played really dazzling and successful football, but there was a component to it that the team spirit was, let's say, a bit more elevated, that a lot of players said that they were basically all good friends. And obviously you can't expect this group to, you know, become besties or whatnot. But I do hope that, especially with the new guys coming in, there are sort of a new group dynamic and a new team spirit that forms, because I do think it's important also for the fans who want to identify with a team, because if there's a good group dynamic, I think it's palpable for fans and they just enjoy watching their team a bit more, because, you know, let's be honest, it's not just about the results, as Sammer says, it's also a little bit about the synergies and dynamics and the narratives and whatever you want. So, and Sammer also had a couple other good quotes. Another one-liner was, euphoria doesn't win you points, which obviously I agree with, but yeah, he's not against the euphoria. He says he's basically just talking about the long-term development, and that brings me to one more key aspect he was talking about, and that is youth development and sort of the integration into the first team. And that he says that Borussia Dortmund, also with the help of Edin Terzic, want in this season and the coming seasons have a more eye for that. And he was talking about that talents like Moukoko, like Bradley Fink, like Gittens or Roto, and maybe even Simic, you know, they want to see those guys to be integrated more and have more chances to play. So, yeah, interesting times at Borussia Dortmund, and obviously the talents that they have are very exciting. Matthias Sammer calls these guys top talents, so make of that what you will. And obviously there are a couple more in the pipeline, be it Prince Anning or Jaden Braaf. And that brings me to the next story, because he had an exclusive interview with the Ruhrnachrichten. And yeah, Jaden Braaf obviously joined Borussia Dortmund from Manchester City's under 23, just like Jadon Sancho did, even though I don't think he was with the under 23s back then, but correct me if I'm wrong. He was loaned out to Udinese Calcio to Serie A for the last half season, but obviously ruptured an ACL and is now still in recovery. But nevertheless, he is talking about why he joined Borussia Dortmund. And he said, quote, I think it's exactly the right club for young players. I've seen in the past that many young players have been given the chance to develop here. Jadon Sancho also came to Dortmund from Manchester City to take the next step here, or Jamie Bino Gittens. He is also a young guy who is now playing in the senior team. So it wasn't really a hard choice to decide to come to Dortmund, simply because I saw that they like to work with young players here and push them. I've spoken with Jamie Bino Gittens and Daniel Mahlen before my move to BVB. They only had positive things to say about the club, and they confirmed to me once again that you find good conditions here, and as a young player you get the chance to show yourself. So yeah, the 19-year-old just recovered from an ACL tear. I think he just started team training again. Obviously, he has to take it slow and ramp it up very carefully, but he says that he's planning to be back to full fitness in 1 or 2 months and is hoping to play for the under-23. And if you think about it, he will probably play together on the left wing with Prince Anning. And that's a very exciting prospect for Dortmund's under-23. And I feel like they are going to terrorize a lot of teams in the third division once they both get going, because Jaden Braaf is obviously compared a little bit to Jadon Sancho. He's obviously also a very technical guy. He's a left winger. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do, because I think Dortmund are hoping for a very positive development. And I think the long-term plan is to, just like with Prince Anning, sort of park him or develop him at the under-23 for a season. Just like the way it's going with Jamie Bino-Gittens right now, and then move him onto the senior team. So over the next 2-3 years, a lot of interesting talents coming through. Jaden Braaf, of course, is Dutch, just like Prince Anning. So I personally am really psyched about these kind of talents. I think they are in a very high category. Obviously, the injury concern is there, but that's maybe one of the reasons why Borussia Dortmund got a player like him in the first place. But yeah, I just wanted to read the quotes to you, just to once again underscore how important it is for Borussia Dortmund to have this standing, be it Jude Bellingham or Jadon Sancho or all the other talents that went through the ranks of Borussia Dortmund. Because if you want to recruit the highest or best talents in Europe and then develop them into stars and, you know, finance your club, make that a business model to a certain extent, having players sort of reaffirm that in interviews like this is very important for Borussia Dortmund. So don't just brush that off. But yeah, I'm going to sign off now. As always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, as always, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.